How's everybody doing? Fantastic. I'm Todd Park, U.S. Chief Technology Officer, here with my brother, Steve Van Rokel, U.S. Chief Information Officer. And it is our great pleasure to welcome you here today, both those here in person and those watching on live stream. Today we've all come together to celebrate the launch of the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program, a new initiative that is bringing 18 incredibly talented private sector innovators from across America to DC to work with our best innovators for 6 months on 5 high-impact projects. These projects promise to support entrepreneurs, small businesses, job growth in the economy, while also significantly improving the ability of the federal government to serve the American people. Today, you'll learn more about these 5 important projects and meet the 18 extraordinary Americans, our inaugural Presidential Innovation Fellows, who have agreed to drop everything, come to DC in the middle of summer, work incredibly hard to do great things for the American people. And you can follow the conversation on Twitter and contribute to the conversation at the hashtag InnovateGov.
So 3 months ago today, Todd and I launched the U.S. Digital Government Strategy, which is a groundbreaking plan to unleash the power of innovation and technology within government. The goals of the digital strategy were sort of threefold. One was, to just have great impact, to focus on impact and driving impact across government. 2 was saving taxpayer money. We think we can do things better, faster, and cheaper by unleashing innovation. And 3 was delivering government in a very citizen-centric way. Now, given all this, we've made incredible progress the last 3 months. Today, we're proud to announce a few things. One is the release of a Bring Your Own Device toolkit for government. So teaching agencies how to use the resources to bear to allow employees to bring devices to work and utilize new technology within the boundaries of government. The second, the Census team is here from the Commerce Department. And today we're very proud to announce the launch of their new multi-platform mobile app that actually triangulates census data with economic data in really interesting ways. So I encourage all of you to go and check that out. But one thing Todd and I really realized going through this process was, just releasing toolkits, just unleashing technology wasn't enough. We needed to bring to bear the power of people within government, and that's what today is really all about. So based on programs like our Entrepreneurs in Residence program we ran at the FDA and other places, and I believe the team is here from there as well, and programs like Code for America, a civic program based on the West Coast, Todd and I, on May 23rd, announced the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program, which, as Todd mentioned, was a program that called on entrepreneurs from around America to come to Washington, to pick up their lives, to move, in many cases, across the continent, to come work in government for a fixed period of time on these focused innovation projects. Within 3 weeks of announcing the innovation program, we had over 700 people apply for 18 positions within government, and thousands more had signed up to be followers and follow along and work with us as we move forward. You'll meet the 18 today. We're very excited about it, and hear more about the projects that all the innovators are going to innovate on.
And we were just so incredibly delighted at the outpouring from folks who wanted to come and serve, who wanted to help the projects. It was just an explosion of civic mindedness, of desire to serve country, of dedication to the nation's future. And it was an incredibly difficult task, actually, to take the 700 applicants, who were amazing, and somehow boil them down to just 18 folks.
It was hard.
That would actually come to DC to be fellows. Many reviewers actually told us that in all their careers in government, they had never seen an applicant pool quite like the 700 before. In the end, the agency did actually select 18 extraordinary Americans to serve as inaugural fellows who embody the spirit of American innovation, of American entrepreneurship, and who can bring the best ideas from the private sector and from across the nation to bear on the critical task of building an ever more effective and efficient government. To say a few words about the critical importance of this work, it's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Jeff Zients, the Acting Director of the Office of Management and Budget and champion of innovation and awesomeness in general in government. Please welcome Jeff.
Can you hear me? Good morning, everybody. That's a tough act to follow, Todd and Steve. And I see Steve Case here in the front row. Steve's daughter, Katie, and my daughter go to school together. And my daughter, they're both 17. so you can imagine what we're dealing with. But she frequently reminds me, "You're no Steve Case," as I struggle with my technology. But speaking of technology, having spent all of my time before 3 years ago in the private sector, so 20-odd years, I know firsthand how important technology has been to driving the success of the private sector and our overall global competitiveness. The president has been on to this since the beginning, when he appointed for the first time ever a chief technology officer and a chief information officer. So right from the beginning, the president has recognized the importance of technology for our economy, our global competitiveness, and for our government operations. If you think about productivity and the productivity increases, the year-over-year increases in the private sector, 1.5%, 2% increases for the last couple of decades in productivity, that compounds in a pretty big way. And companies that weren't on that curve are no longer with us. It's hard to measure productivity in the federal government, but the best metric is some work done by McKinsey, which says that the federal sector has grown productivity, but slower than the private sector. So there is a gap, a productivity gap, between how the federal sector has increased its productivity across the last couple decades and what the private sector has done. We all know that it's wrong to assume technology is the answer and lead with technology, but technology at the same time has been at the center of those productivity gains. And we need to close that productivity gap. So central to closing that productivity gap is improving innovation and technology in the federal government. And I think we've made some good progress since the very beginning of the administration. We have great people in the federal government. The idea of pairing the great people in the federal government with the best of the private sector to accelerate those efforts has me and all of us incredibly excited by the potential. I think that all of us here are present at the creation of something great. We're starting with, is it 18 or 19? 18. 18. I think we will compound in a big way and look back and say, remember when we were only 18? Because this idea of bringing the best of the private sector to the federal government and pairing our great resources here in the federal government with the private sector is something that we need to be doing more and more of. So thank you all for being pioneers. I'm incredibly excited by the early work and look forward to a great future of technology and innovation in the federal government. Thank you.
Well, congratulations to our fellows. I'm John Barry, the Director of the Office of Personnel Management, the people side of the equation. And as everybody knows, innovation starts with an idea somewhere. A light bulb that happened over somebody's head, came out of a discussion, was provoked by an observation, or inspired by a thought. And innovation is only worthwhile, I would argue, if it benefits somebody, because it makes people's lives better, because it makes their lives easier, or maybe it makes their lives longer. And we can't forget that from end to end, there is always a human element in innovation. Now, we've tried to focus on human-centered design in our approaches at OPM. We've launched our innovation lab around that concept, and we are participating fully in collaborative initiatives like this one. And so that's why I wanted to focus on the human collaboration side of innovation and the reasoning behind the Presidential Innovative Fellows. Bill Joy, a co-founder of Sun Microsystems, pointed out what is now known as Joy's Law. No matter who you are, most of the smartest people work for somebody else. Now, while we have great teams in the government already, and that was proven once again last week with the successful landing of the Mars rover, which was a phenomenal success, there are also a lot of really smart, talented folks in the private sector, in academia, and in the nonprofit world. And what if we were to team some of these best innovators outside of government with some of our brightest innovators inside of government, just imagine what we might accomplish. And that's where this program came in. We laid out 5 challenges, and we said, okay, who wants to tackle these? And as you've heard, the response was amazing. For the 18 fellowship spots, we received over 700 applications, representing tremendously diverse backgrounds and incredible talent. Applicants willing to drop everything, move here to DC, and serve their country. And from that pool of talent, we have assembled the truly impressive teams that you're going to see here today. You're going to see what I mean in a moment. People from nuclear engineering, startup businesses, and best-selling books. These fellows are brimming with talent, accomplishment, and courage. But before we introduce our new teams, let me just reach back for a quick moment 200 years to a British admiral, Horatio Nelson, now famous for his very brilliant naval victories. He won battle after battle, often outgunned and outnumbered. And he did it because, unlike many admirals before or since, he didn't depend on direct command over every ship. And he didn't stick to textbook tactics that everyone had used for years and years. Instead, Nelson discussed strategy with his captains well in advance and set for them broad goals that he expected them to achieve in whatever battle they would find themselves. His approach meant that when his fleet engaged another, his captains knew immediately how to work together, react quickly, and to work towards those overall goals that Nelson had set without waiting for specific orders. It meant more brains and more creativity were unleashed on Nelson's side than on his adversaries. Now, we're asking you the same thing. We have set out these 5 broad goals, and we're counting on your smarts and your creativity in figuring out ways how to reach these goals better and more efficiently. New ways for our government to operate, using ideas that right now most of us can't even imagine. We're counting on you to think boldly, fail early, learn quickly, and above all, dare to do great things. Do good things. And now it's time to hear about each of our great projects today and meet the teams that are going to be powering them. To kick things off, would you please welcome Peter Levin, the Chief Technology Officer of the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Farzad Mostashari, the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology at the Department of Health and Human Services. Take it away, guys. Thanks. Good luck. Thanks.
Well, hello and good morning, everybody. Good. We are so happy to be here and to kick off this discussion of the Presidential Innovation Fellows with a conversation about Blue Button. Some of you might have already heard about Blue Button, but in the next couple of minutes, 10 or so, we're going to explain to you why we've done this and what's coming next. So exciting I can hardly talk, but I'm going to try. If you have a parent, if you are a parent, you might have a partner that you care about or a pulse you want to keep going for a long time, then you know what a pain it is to get your medical records. So imagine this situation, just as a for instance. You have an elderly parent, an elderly mom, and she's living in Washington, D.C. a couple months ago. She's relatively healthy, but she's got to take a few meds every day. She's got to remember to do this every day. And all of a sudden, a ferocious storm comes along and knocks out the power to her house. Now, it ends up that that's not really the crisis. The crisis occurs a couple minutes later when she falls down and she has to go to the emergency room, and she can't remember her meds. She's not going to remember the names. She's not going to remember the doses. She's not going to remember the frequency. how often she has to take it. And you know something? You're not going to remember it either. Let me give you another for instance. What if you're a doc? Imagine you're a doctor and a patient comes in to see you, and the guy seems okay, he seems smart, he seems lucid, he's got a problem, that's why he's there. And you're going through the medical history, and he remembers everything. He's got most of it written down, but not all of it. And you say, okay, it's time for the physical exam. The guy takes off his shirt, and there's a big scar right down the middle. And the guy says, oh, what's that? He said, oh my God, I forgot to tell you. I had open heart surgery a couple years ago. You know, something that would be good to know, right? So now we have these problems. Oops. So now we have these problems of complexity, right? So if you're a doctor, you got to keep all this stuff in your head. You're dealing with hundreds or thousands of patients. If you're a patient, you may have dozens of doctors, and they all need the same information. And you know something? The combination of that complexity, thousands of diagnoses, thousands of conditions, thousands of medications, dozens of doctors, combine that with paper and people, this is a losing combination, folks. This is not where you want to be. But I have good news. The days of having to remember everything or remember where you put everything are numbered. The days of having to schlep around a suitcase, well, I've seen pictures of this, schlep around a suitcase full of the medicines you've taken, your surgical history, the immunizations you and your kids have had, the films of your radiological studies, all that stuff is about to move from physical atoms to electrons as we're going to put it in the cloud. Those days are numbered. In 2010, 2 years ago this month, President Obama announced that the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I work, is going to make the personal health record of veterans available online with something called Blue Button. Blue Button was and is still today an incredibly simple idea. It basically just puts electronic information in the hands of veterans. Safely, reliably, conveniently. Stuff that we all would want for ourselves. So, in the words of President Obama, with the push of a button, your records are downloaded and you can share them with your doctor or with other people you trust. All we did really was put the name where the name is supposed to go, medications in a list of medications, penicillin, even if it wasn't spelt right, goes in the medications part. And sore throat, well, that's a problem. That's maybe why you're in the doctor's office today. We just listed that as well. The trick, this is not a hard technical problem, right? The trick really is to break through the red tape, the can'ts and the don'ts and I don't wanna, and what about this and all about that, right? Was to make people aware that it wasn't a technology problem and that the clinical, the operational, the patient impact was immeasurable. And we did. So you might say, well, geez, all you've done is give some silly ASCII file, the kind of file that any person can read on a screen or on a mobile device. All you've done is give that to people and put it, oh my God, you put it in the hands of patients? Really? And yep, that's exactly what we did. We took that file and we said it's available to you, and we've done it now 1 million times. So just a few days after President Obama's announcement, not only did the VA make their Blue Button available, so did CMS, so did DoD, and shortly thereafter, a lot of our private sector partners are now making their Blue Buttons available too. Now today, fast forward 2 years later, thanks to Director Barry's leadership, all the carriers of federal health insurance, all the people that insure all the folks that work for the federal government, they're going to make a Blue Button available. Thank you very much. Large software companies of your acquaintance have readers. Large insurers that you probably know or even belong to are going to open up the floodgates of that data. Last month, 80,000 people, just at the VA alone, downloaded their personal health record. That number is going up and to the right. And as I said, in less than 2 years, 1 million people have already used the blue button successfully and happily. Now, if you're Todd Park, you say, 1 million people? That's amazing. We should have some presidential innovation fellows to help make it bigger. And if you're Dr. Farzad Mostashari, you say, it's good. It's a nice start.
It's a good start, Peter. It's a good start.
Farzad,
Thank you.
what are we going to do next?
So now what? The VA brilliantly moved simply to be able to make this information available to veterans. And as we heard, 1 million veterans have downloaded their information. And where the VA led, others have now followed. So how do we take this to the next level? We have an MVP, right? These, for you startup folks out there, this minimally viable product. But it's not really a product. We're not trying to get 10 million of something sold or 100 million. It's an idea. It's an attitude that says it's okay to get your own record. It's an attitude among providers of openness. Openness means letting other people help. When we talk about open government, when we're talking about open data, when we're talking about opening, that means letting others help. And in this case, who are we letting help? The patient. We're letting the patient and the people who love them help. So it's an attitude and it's an action. Let's turn blue button from a noun to a verb. So I can say, yeah, I was talking to my mom last night. I'm kind of worried about her. Yeah, she's going to blue button those scans, and we're going to send them to my uncle. That's what we want to do. We want to make it an action. To do that, we're going to need help. To take this to the next level up. On 3 fronts. That's why we got 3 fellows. Each of you guys got to solve one of these problems, all right? The first is, we got to change those attitudes. You got to know that you can get it, and increasingly, today, right now, you can't. If I go all over America and I say to one of you, ask your doctor. In fact, ask your doctor. Do that. Say, what's in my record? Believe me. Trust me. Trust Leon Rodriguez, the head of the Office of Civil Rights. It's not against HIPAA. It's not against HIPAA to ask for your own records. It actually is your right. But we need to stimulate that demand. We need to have more people asking, saying, can I get a copy of my own records? If you're on Medicare now, you can get a copy of your records. If you're a veteran now, you can get a copy of your records. Increasingly, we're going to work with those who hold the data to change those attitudes and make it available. Stimulate the demand, the attitudes on the one hand, and the access on the other hand. And this is the most fun part. Well, it's the fellow that I'm going to be working with. The most fun is going to be now not just having it be data that, yes, you can print and you can read and you can have and you can share, but things you can do with it now. To have that data, that information and the incentives turn into combustible magic in the startup crucible. To have people help you use your data to do things you want to do. I want to manage my health. I want to connect to other people. I want to manage my healthcare finances. I want to get a second opinion. I want to find a clinical trial. I want to be able to do things. And for that, we need to not just liberate the data, but we need to make it so that those entrepreneurs can come in and openness to that innovation. And that's what we're going to do. So that's our goal, is to take the million and call it a good start and say, how do we take it to 10 million by next year and 100 million 2 years from now? So, meet the Blue Button team. I talked to Ryan Panchatsaram on the phone as we were interviewing these phenomenal, hang on, I'm going to praise you for a sec. as we were interviewing these amazing, and it was like amazing candidate after amazing candidate, we were like, oh, we got to get that one. Oh, how could we do better? And then I talked to Ryan. And yeah, he was, graduated from UC Berkeley with engineering, and he has this real design sensibility, and he worked on, he was in charge of Microsoft Outlook for Mac, and getting that, all of you all love that, right? The design sense, and he won the 2012 Google's International Design, Information Design Visualization Competition. And he's this amazing, right? But what got me goosebumps was when he said, when I was 18, I talked to my parents, and we go back, we started with veterans, we go back to veterans. And he said, my mom's a Marine, my dad was in the Air Force and served in the Navy, and I always thought that I would join the military, that I would be in the armed forces and service. And my parents said to me, son, we did this so you could serve your country a different way. And he said, when I saw the Presidential Innovation Fellow opportunity, I knew this was my way to serve. Ryan, come on up.
Woo! Congratulations. So the guy who I deal with a lot at OSTP, besides the CTO of the United States, Todd Park, is this guy standing over in the corner, John Farmer, calls me up some Friday afternoon. John's very direct, right? John, just do what he says. It's easier, right? It's right. He says, listen, dude, I got bad news for you. You got till Monday. Got the pile of resumes. And there were 700 altogether. I don't know how many were in Blue Body. There was 300. I mean, there was a lot, right? And he's like, how hard can it be? Right? Okay, 300 resumes. And I thought, oh my God, right? It's the same experience that Farzan has, right? And then I run into a resume, which it bowled me over. Guy's name is Matt McCall. I know this name. I know who that guy is. I remember reading about this. That wasn't the only one. And you're going through it, and what we didn't talk about too much was that a lot of what we're trying to accomplish here is not build proprietary silos of secret code, of secret sauce that only we have, only the government has. We're trying to make this as open as possible, literally put it into the public domain, literally make it open source. Matt McCall did that already on the platform that actually is the driver of Blue Button. So Matt, would you please come up? I am so glad I found you.
Henry, come on up too.
Thanks very much. Okay, so that was the easy one, right? The harder one was finally, Farmer's I know he's going to call me on Monday morning, right? I know that this is going to be an unpleasant conversation. They mostly are, even when I have good news. So I've got like the top three, right? And it's really hard. It's checklists, Excel spreadsheet. I'm an engineer, right? So you model all this stuff. And then I'm thinking, what I really want, the most abstract thing, what I really want is a guy who knows the provider, payer world, that has been to places that I've heard of. It's like, if I'm going to hire somebody who I actually don't know very well and I've never heard of before, and then I get this phone call. It's like, hey, you know something? You've got somebody in your pile of 300 resumes that you probably want to talk to, and the guy's resume was right in front of me as I get this phone call. It's like, oh my God. So Henry Way, please come up and join us. His last title at a major American healthcare provider was Director of Clinical Innovations. But oh wait, there's more. Undergraduate in the Ivy League, medical degree from Cornell, and this guy's forgotten more than all of us together know about health informatics. So can you imagine the dream team, the people who build the platform, the people who are going to stimulate customer demand, and people who are going to go around to all the providers and say, it's okay. You can do this. And in fact, we can do this together. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited about this. It's great.
Next up, we have Sean Green from the Small Business Association to kick off the next group. Thank you. Thanks. everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Sean Green. I run the Investment and Innovation Programs at the Small Business Administration, as SBA, and I'm here to talk about Project RFP EZ, which is a project to make it easier for startups to sell to the federal government and to make procurement of federal IT better, cheaper, and faster. So to put it in context, I think everybody in the room and those watching at home know that particularly in the world of the web and mobile development, costs have come down dramatically, 5x or more. And personally, as someone who formerly was a web entrepreneur and investor, what I've seen is a massive disconnect between how technology is being used in the private sector and how it's being used in government. And I see that manifested itself in the frustration of entrepreneurs who have tried to sell to the federal government. And literally you see a quote there from a startup entrepreneur who said, no matter how faster and better and cheaper my product, it's just impossible to sell to the federal government. I see frustration in venture capitalists who advise their portfolio companies, don't bother trying to sell to the government. It's too much time, it's not worth the energy, it's not worth the bandwidth. And if investors are saying this and telling their portfolio companies not to bother selling to the largest customer in the world, then we have something fundamentally wrong. At the same time, we see opportunity. And I'll pick on Todd, as others have, to give an example of when Todd was CTO at Health and Human Services, a team within HHS came to him saying, Todd, we got a problem. We've got an important need here. The initial estimate on the technology to serve this project is $5 million. We just don't have that much in our budget. And so Todd worked with the team, pointed them to look at cloud-based solutions. And as a result of that, the team was able to go ahead, find some innovative companies that could deliver the solution for just over $400,000, 10x cheaper. And so the opportunity and the challenge in front of us is, how do we replicate that? How do we make that happen more often? And why should we care? Because there's a tremendous opportunity for a win-win here. For the federal government, the win is an opportunity to save taxpayer dollars or get far more bang for the buck. And with federal IT procurement, we're talking about $80 billion, a massive, massive opportunity. But it's also an opportunity for the innovative startups, who, by the way, are the ones who create all of the net new jobs in the economy. And so as I've traveled around the country, talking to hundreds, more than 1,000 entrepreneurs, and we ask them what barriers they're facing to growing their companies and creating jobs, we've heard about things like access to capital, changing immigration policy, that we're excited about the success and progress we've made. But what I've also heard is, hey, make it easier to sell to the federal government, right? People have told me, make it easier. I know my product is better, cheaper, but help me get my foot in the door. And so the opportunity we have in front of us is to help take this success story that I pointed to Todd, and let's replicate that and scale that at a much bigger level. And let's help a lot more innovative companies get their foot in the door. So to understand how to do that, let's start with understanding the problem. The fundamental problem is complexity. So here's how the federal procurement process works for the uninitiated. So all clearly mapped out right there with an example from the Department of Defense. So you're a startup who's already working ridiculous hours. Where do you begin? Startups don't have dedicated teams to help navigate the federal procurement process. And at its core, we have a problem when the process for $150,000 software procurement works the same way that it does for a $150 million procurement. More broadly, as we think about the problem, what we see is a fundamental gap between the innovative startups and federal buyers. So how do they find each other, right? Most federal buyers don't hang out on TechCrunch to find out what's the latest and what's happening with innovative startups. The startups don't hang out on FedBizOps or Federal Register. Even if they know where to find each other, what we're seeing is they speak different languages. Startups don't speak government acronymese, right? People looking to do web development for the government may have to know how to search on terms like content information distribution platform. So how do we get over the language barrier?
And then how do we challenge the issue of just different time frames, right? The traditional RFP process that works in the federal government is 3 lifetimes for a startup. How do we address those challenges? So our solution is something we're calling RFP EZ. Right? So RFP is request for proposal. That's the traditional way government initiates a contracting procedure. We're borrowing from a successful example, the 1040 EZ in the metaphor, right, that we all know, that took something fairly complicated and said, hey, for a subset of the people who don't need all that complexity, how do we make something easier to work? And we said, let's bring that concept to procurement. Specifically, we'll start with federal IT. And at its core, what we're trying to do is build a marketplace of buyers and sellers to bring together fragmented buyers and sellers to make transactions happen. And to the economists in the room, you know, this is all about lowering transaction costs. But to the entrepreneurs in the room, it's about making it faster and simpler. So we're going to do that by focusing on a couple of different things. First, we're going to focus on discovery. How do we help the buyers and sellers find each other? With an opportunity to leverage things like online directories, simple video demos of products and services to help each other know what's available, and as appropriate, in-person demo days that we know have worked very effectively in the private sector, right? Because in the discovery process, you've got a chicken and egg problem, right? If there aren't enough government buyers, you can't get the innovative startups to come. If you don't have innovative startups with good products, the buyers won't come. So simplifying a process by which you can communicate helps that discovery process. At the end of the day, though, what we really want to do is to drive more transactions. And so changing and creating templates and simplified processes for easier transactions are critically important as well. So have a screenshot here of one specific module that the team has been focused on that we're calling Statement of Work Composer. The whole idea here is a simple templated solution that creates statements of work for a specific procurement. Why this matters is to the program officer who wants to do the buy, by leveraging a template, half of the work is already done, and they can get it done faster. To contracting officers, they then know that the language in this has been reviewed by a group of their peers to make sure it's valid, legitimate, et cetera. And then to the small business, it's written in plain English in terms friendly to them, understandable to them, to make it happen. So I point to a Statement of Work Composer not as an idea of something that we want to do, but I'm incredibly pleased to say the team is already ready to ship this product. So in a spirit of rapid innovation, they said, let's no pressure to the other teams that, you know, haven't shipped anything yet. But the team has already written the code for this. For the developers paying attention, they'll be posting the code to GitHub later this afternoon. And very much in a spirit of, let's get something up and running, let's get people to kick the tires, give feedback, and we'll rapidly innovate and improve from there. So with that as a segue, let me turn to the team. We have a phenomenal team. So you heard the dream team metaphor. There are going to be all kinds of great metaphors coming. At its core, what we're really seeing is each one of these individuals are successful entrepreneurs and successful technologists. So let me introduce them now. Let me lead off with Clay Johnson. Clay, come on down. So Clay, successful entrepreneur, founder of Blue State Digital. He also is the director of Sunlight Labs at the Sunlight Foundation, where he led a community of over 2,000 developers, building apps and functionality to help make the government more open and transparent. He's a best-selling author, recently released of The Information Diet, and was in 2009 won Google and O'Reilly Media's award for Open Source Organizer of the Year. But most importantly, he is the proud father of an adorable 7-week-old Felix, who's in the house today. Felix? No, quiet, clap quietly. Felix might be asleep. And so when we're thinking about what profile do we want in our Innovation Fellows, we said, well, where can we find someone who's not going to be sleeping for the next 6 months? So welcome, Clay. Next, I want to call up Jed Wood. Jed, come on up. So Jed's coming in from Chicago, Illinois. Jed has more than 10 years of experience kind of merging the worlds of design and user experience and programming, both critically important to this effort. He actually, at the first ever White House Codeathon, was top mention in that effort. Also a successful entrepreneur, has led the effort, created a startup called Lime Chili that has already spun off 3 different apps that have been acquired. And with a name like Lime Chili, we're going to turn to him as our brand guru. And Jed lives in Chicago, as I mentioned, with his wife and 2 daughters. To the metaphor that we had before, I only have 1 daughter, who, Steve, it's 13 going on 17, so good luck with 2. And then finally, we'd like to call up Adam Becker. So Adam comes in from Oakland, where he's an avid cyclist and lives with his 2 cats. Slightly less challenging than the 2 daughters, but we know it's work. So again, another great example of somebody who's a talented entrepreneur and developer. He was the founder and CTO of a company, GovHub, that focused on helping stakeholders at the local level improve communications on key issues important to them. Has also had a ton of despite his youth, or I should say probably because of his youth, has a ton of web development projects under his belt already. And his first website he ever built was for his junior high punk rock band. So everybody's going to say that their team are rock stars, but we have a legitimate punk rock star on our team. So welcome the team. And I would also like to give a shout out to Asan Wardak, who's somewhere in the room, who is on my team at SBA. Asan is also a talented entrepreneur and technologist who's the point person working with the team on RFP Easy. So quickly, here's our game plan. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. So in the short term, we want to walk before we can run. So we want to focus this effort on IT specifically, and in particular on one targeted sector, web development. What we want to do in the next 6 months is build a working alpha. Let's run a handful of actual procurements through this process. Let's have some case studies that demonstrate how we can save money, get better solutions for taxpayers. And then let's create the blueprint to scale. Beyond that, what we're trying to accomplish is attract new businesses into government contracting, save significant money, and then finally, close that gap that I talked about, and Jeff Zients talked about at the beginning as well, of how the private sector uses technology and the government. So finally, an ask to everyone out there, here's how you can help. First of all, follow us on Twitter. You see our Twitter handle there, or you'll see it on the next page. If you're a developer, this is all on an open platform. Check out what we're doing and contribute on GitHub. Folks in the federal government, if you're a contracting officer, we need your input. Kick the tires. Give us a feedback on what matters to you. Federal buyers, come in and be a beta buyer on the platform. And to small businesses, particularly in web development, contact us. We'd love to have you participate and join. So that's Project RFP EZ. Thanks for coming. We look forward to your input going forward. And again, on any of these, email us if you're interested at the following email, Project RFPEZ@sba.gov. Thank you. And so now I want to turn the mic over to Macon Phillips to talk about MyGov. Macon is the Director of Digital Strategy here at the White House.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the White House. I think you're getting a sense of why sometimes we call this room the South Beach Auditorium. But I'm the halfway mark, so hang in there. I'm here to talk to you about Project MyGov. And Project MyGov is an effort to reimagine how citizens interact with government through an experience designed around their needs, not our bureaucracy. And to kind of give you a sense of what that means, I want to talk to you about Alice. Just a sort of persona that we're going to use to illustrate this. Alice is married. She's got 2 kids. She served in Iraq for 4 years. She's a veteran. She started her own small business. She's in catering. And she owns her own home in my hometown of Huntsville, Alabama. There's a lot of government information relevant to her. Of course, she goes to the Veterans Affairs for information about her benefits. She'll probably interact with the Department of Education for information about student loans. Of course, there's the Consumer Product Safety Commission that's going to help her keep tabs on product recalls and cribs and all sorts of issues. There's the Small Business Administration for information about loans and other support for her business. And then say you've got something like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that's going to have resources about her mortgage or a way for her to file a complaint. She has to go to each of these places to get that information. And sometimes she may not even know that these exist, and that's a problem. And that's also just the tip of the iceberg. The government has all sorts of things relevant to her, but they're scattered and they're buried deep within this bureaucracy. And that's the key question of MyGov. How can we identify those things and bring them to her? Now, we first tried to tackle this problem with FirstGov, whose mission was to provide the public with easy one-stop access for all federal information and services. And I think 12 years later, we can all agree that FirstGov was certainly not the last .gov. But that's not to say that websites are bad. We've actually had some really great examples of websites in the last few years. Take the recent StudentAid.gov that Education just put out. It's a great example of user-centric design that helps people find the right student aid resources based on their needs. Of course, you've got healthcare.gov, which is for the first time, you can find all of your public and private healthcare coverage options in the same place. And it, too, is built around users. Or consumerfinance.gov. Here is a site for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that offers a range of resources to empower consumers and also a way for them to file complaints. Each offers powerful tools to the user, and each is organized around a regular person, not a subject matter expert. But that said, there's still more we can do. These are 3 distinct sites produced by different agencies. And although Alice might end up at studentaid.gov with her kid researching college affordability options, she might not know about some of the benefits relevant to her at healthcare.gov, or that she can actually get help with her mortgage at consumerfinance.gov. There's not an efficient superstructure across the federal web space to help her discover these things. And of course, as I said earlier, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The web has brought incredible efficiency to the relationship between government and citizens. You can pay taxes in your pajamas. You can go research energy-efficient light bulbs or laundry machines at energystar.gov. You can even track a robot on Mars. All right. So there's a NASA fan here. All right. There's a lot to discover, and shifting that burden from the citizen back to the government is what we're trying to do here. But back to Alice. I want to stress that we're not here to create yet another website that Alice has to remember. MyGov is a service that goes out into the federal bureaucracy, identifies the information and services relevant to her based on her needs, brings that together into a personalized experience, and that we can present perhaps through its own standalone dashboard, or perhaps in the context of sites that she's already visiting. And this is a pretty big challenge, but the good news is it's building on momentum that's already out there. Of course, we've got USA.gov, which has done incredible work laying down the groundwork for how we organize information around topics rather than bureaucracy. And I'm sure many of you have heard about our colleagues across the pond at the United Kingdom's government digital service that have made some remarkable achievements with gov.uk. Now, both of these make search a central part of their strategy, and that's going to serve as a key component of ours moving forward. But our bigger picture is truly a no-wrong-door approach, where every federal touchpoint participates in this agency-agnostic, people-centered service. And we're not just solving for today. This approach also allows us to add a new dimension as people's information and needs change over time. Imagine if Alice creates a custom profile focused on her interests, one that enables notifications and alerts if content she saw yesterday changes tomorrow, like a new product recall or veterans benefit. So what's this going to look like? In 1 month, we're planning to have a basic prototype of the MyGov platform. In 3 months, define this basic persona standards for personalizing services and information. and in 6 months have at least 2 important citizen and government interactions using the platform, and a personalized notification center for government services and information. Now this is the fun part. Let's talk about who's going to do it. Cara, come on up. Cara DeFrias' enthusiasm for creating great experiences is contagious, whether she's working on the Oscars with the gold medal winning U.S. women's soccer team or taxes at TurboTax. We got her to come here all the way from San Diego to work with us on making user experiences awesome, which if you've ever paid your taxes, you can understand how that could not be awesome, but she knows how to get it done. This 3-time cancer survivor's got a knack for speaking to users in their language, tapping to their emotions, and relentlessly pushes for what's best for them. Phil. All right. Phil Ashlock is steeped in the open government community from years building open source civic infrastructure at Open Plans and sharing it through Civic Commons. As the primary instigator behind the community-driven Open 311 initiative, a service up and running in lots of cities, including this one, Washington, D.C., he's helped create a common platform for citizen services that's revolutionizing the way people interact with government around the world. He's got a gift for bringing people together to solve complex challenges. Ben. All right. Ben Balter, everyone. All right, man. This guy's lightning in a bottle. He's the kind of guy that's been hacking government from the inside out, already at places like the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and FCC, all while pursuing degrees in law and business. Obviously an underachiever. Danny, come on up. All right. So Danny Chapman brings his award-winning design chops from recent work at Rhode Island's RI.gov, among many other sites. And he's got that rare intersection of experience with both design but also empathy for user experience with government services. And finally, we've got Greg. All right. So Greg's made a career of creating products that make information more accessible. Most recently, he was on the core team developing USA Search platform. And his idea of relaxing with a movie is building a custom application to search iTunes, Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu for the best options. It's out there. It's Cinedex.com with an I, right? All right, Cinedex with an I. So anyway, we're looking for ideas from everyone. For example, are you an expert in privacy? We want to talk to you. Providing a level of personalization requires knowing something about that person, and this must be handled with a strong emphasis on user permission, control, and transparency. Have you had experience developing platforms like this? We want to connect. The bottom line is that even though this project is called MyGov, the challenge is all of ours. Yours, mine, and Alice's. And we cannot wait to get to work. So thank you, everyone. All right, and now I'm going to introduce Mara O'Neill, who's the Chief Innovation Officer at USAID. Mara?
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Nathan. Hi, I'm happy to be here and so excited to share this platform with these amazing Presidential Innovation Fellows and the awesome people that I get a chance to work with in this administration. As Macon said, my name is Mara O'Neill, and I joined Administrator Raj Shah 3 years ago at AID, the U.S. Agency for International Development. USAID's development work is a key component of our foreign policy, alongside with the defense work that our military does and the diplomacy work that our State Department does. We know that our economic prosperity at home and our own national security is at risk when 1/3 of the people in the world live in extreme poverty and 1 million more live under repressive governments for which they don't have a hope to build a better life for their children. Development, as President Obama and Secretary Clinton note, is essential to advancing American interests and solving global security problems as diplomacy and defense. Our job at USAID is to reduce that risk by being relentlessly focused on finding ways to deliver results faster and more efficient than traditional development and humanitarian assistance has done. So come back with me to that first week of work that Raj and I were at. It was Wednesday. It was late afternoon, and flashed across our screens the Haiti earthquake, 7.0. Turns out it ends up being the largest urban disaster in modern history. It affected 1/3 of the population, and it claimed nearly 250,000 people's lives. Since it was dusk, it would be morning before we could assess the damage. Could we land planes? Could we dock ships? How were we going to get help down there? We worked all night. It was the first of many. We worked in lockstep with other US government agencies and our military to help Haiti. The earthquake left a government in rubble, an economy in shambles, and people living in makeshift camps, coping with enormous loss. It also caused a cash crisis. The earthquake destroyed nearly 1/3 of all the bank branches and the ATMs. But for over 90% of the Haitians who didn't have access to either one of those before the earthquake, their life savings went down with their house. Their cash was buried hopelessly under thousands and thousands of pounds of rubble. So here they were with no ability to actually buy anything. So imagine for a minute what it meant if your savings were wiped out in a second. Walk with me and walk with the people in Haiti for a second as we put ourselves in their shoes. Their house has been destroyed. A loved one has probably been killed. Everything around you seems to have crumbled. And because your entire life's worth is your assets and your cash has been swept away with the destruction, you have no ability to buy food, you have no ability to buy water, and you have no ability to buy any supplies to rebuild your house. This cash crisis was one of the least understood but hugely damaging effects of the earthquake. I often think about this story and think how lucky you and I are to live in a place that has a safe place to store our money. At AID, we know that financial inclusion and financial infrastructure is critical for families and economies to grow. In Haiti, where mobile phones were the only thing left standing at the end of this earthquake, we thought, what if we could turn every phone into a wallet, a cash register, a bank branch? President Obama had challenged us to create a world in which AID and aid is no longer necessary. This was the kind of game-changing innovation that was going to be necessary. Priya Jaisangani and I, she's the director of our mobile solutions team at USAID, led an effort with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the USAID Haiti office, and local companies to build a mobile monies platform in Haiti months after the earthquake. I was in Haiti just last month and excited to tell you about the progress. The Haitians celebrated the 5 millionth mobile money transaction in less than 2 years. So we have a long way to go in rebuilding the country and people rebuilding their lives, but we have a financial infrastructure that is beginning to work. To better explain why this is important and what it means, let me introduce you. So this is what a lot of the ATMs and bank branches look like the day after the earthquake. So let me introduce you to Martine. After the earthquake, she had to move 75 miles north of Port-au-Prince to live with her family, taking only what she could carry. She made a living by selling food, soap, sponges, and other miscellaneous items. She made a few dollars here and there, but she didn't have anywhere to put it. She carried around a bag of cash, she stuffed it in her clothes, but she lived in a state of fear, worrying every day that a thief or a stranger, or maybe just somebody who had a little less than her, would steal that sum of money from her. This began to change when Martine participated in one of USAID's programs with Mercy Corps. She learned how to use mobile money, and she sent it back and forth with her family in Port-au-Prince. As a result of the training she received, she decided to start using mobile money in her business to more efficiently collect fees, to deposit her money in the bank, and for her products, just like we use credit cards in our businesses today. Martine told us that mobile money is like a safe for me. Like a safe, it makes Martine feel secure and empowered. Like a safe, it keeps money close so Martine doesn't have to travel to a bank. And like a safe, it enables Martine to grow her business and support her future. Martine's story is not that unique in Haiti, and electronic payments won't solve all her problems, but it is helping her in profound ways. If you only remember 3 things from this talk today, I want you to remember that electronic payments reduce transaction costs, they reduce corruption and violence, and they enable businesses to grow. And these are the conditions necessary if donors, to create a world where donors are not needed. Now think about the US for a moment. The Industrial Revolution wouldn't have happened without thriving commercial banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and thousands of community banks around the US. eBay might not have been the eBay powerhouse that we know today if it weren't for PayPal. Our economy depends on the ability to send and receive money seamlessly. Your livelihood and mine depend on the ability to save, invest money, and use credit and debit cards in your wallet. But we also know that this kind of thing just doesn't happen. Think back to the history of the credit card. It actually took 50 years for the credit cards to really become ubiquitous in the US. People didn't trust credit cards, or at least they didn't know whether they should trust credit cards. Not enough merchants took it. But we don't have 50 years to wait to get people out of extreme poverty and create new markets for American products. So let's see what's happening around the world. The technology exists. The innovation payments platform exists. And here is a picture of the place in the world that this is happening so well, and that's Kenya. And we're honored to have the ambassador to the US from Kenya joining us today. Kenya's M-Pesa mobile money product, 80% of Kenyan adults use it as a way to store and transfer money. And they've done this in just 5 years, not 50 years. 80% of the adults are using it. But this is one of the few platforms to reach mass scale. There's about 130 deployments of mobile money and electronic platforms worldwide that are stalled. They're stalled for various reasons, but in large part they're stalled because there aren't any anchor tenants to this mobile money platform. It's a network effect. There needs to be huge volumes of transactions to support the kinds of agents on every corner, just like there was to have an ATM machine on every corner. So we need to, and can, jumpstart these efforts to find these anchor tenants for that mobile money mall. Until today, cash was the only alternative. And for those of us who live in the US, seems pretty easy. We go to the ATM, we get cash. We don't put our lives at risk as we are storing our money in our pockets or have to use our credit cards to actually buy things that are remote. But at this unique moment in history, when technology allows us to envision a world where everybody can soon keep their money electronically, safely, soundly, and together build a better, stronger economy, that's what we're about. So I'm so excited to launch the 20% initiative today, which aims to reduce 20% of the costs with cash-based programs across the US government and put these tools in the hands of the poorest people in the world. At USAID, we are proud that we have taken bold steps to motivate a change in the way our partners and we do business. We continue to use our budget as a force for good, creating incentives that encourage partners to implement new payment methods. The Catholic Relief Services in Haiti, when they instituted paying their salaries through mobile money, reduced their administrative costs by 60%. So we think that 20% is a huge goal, but we have an awesome set of other teams here, and we've got to beat them on some metrics. And Sean released his beta today, so we can actually do that. So we think 20% is a great goal, but we also aspire to do higher. We are prouder still that the White House wants to expand this initiative across the US government, like the Department of Defense, which has said that it needs to get cash off the battlefield to keep our soldiers safe. In Afghanistan, where police officers began to get paid through mobile money instead of a series of cash payments, they discovered that they had a 30% raise. They thought they got it actually from the mobile money company. But in fact, that was actually the amount of sticky fingers that were happening from the time the cash was deployed to the time they got it in their hands. A really important thing about this is when they were getting 30% less, they were getting paid less than the Taliban was willing to offer them to come to the other side. When they got that 30% raise, the money that they should have had in the first place, they were getting paid more than the Taliban was willing to offer them. So if we don't think that this has huge implications, not just for disaster, but for national security, as well as Americans to sell products overseas, the effect of this kind of payments platform and the efficiencies and opportunities are enormous. So moving from cash to electronic helps our security, it creates new products and makes the world more safe. So we say to ourselves, well, this is so simple. We thought this too. We said, okay, well, we'll just, how many programs could we possibly have doing cash at USAID globally? We're in almost 100 countries. Well, we had 140 projects that used cash because it's hard to actually transport anything else around the world. So we got into this and we found this is actually pretty darn complicated. It sort of looks like navigating this slide. It didn't take us long to realize that there were deep challenges to internal processes, contract language, audit requirements, internal champions, and oh yes, we wanted to make sure that terrorists and money launderers around the world couldn't actually use this new financial structure. So we've been working very closely with our US Treasury colleagues and other things I won't bore you with. But it's a challenge that cuts across the banking industry, the payments industry, technology, consumer protection, and a whole lot of other sets of bureaucracies. So the White House and us went on a hunt to find an entrepreneur with the experience and skill to join Priya, to join Nandini and others to tackle this multifaceted challenge. So I'd like to introduce Carl Mehta, our Presidential Innovation Fellow. We're really excited to have him. Carl is a Silicon Valley-based entrepreneur from Fremont, California. He's an engineer and inventor. He started 3 companies. His last one, PlaySpan, he worked with that he sold to Visa. He worked with companies like Warner Brothers, Nickelodeon, Disney, and Facebook. So you may have actually used, if you bought some virtual goods on those sites, or you bought some real goods, you may have actually used the payment platform of Carl. So we are so excited to have you, Carl, and we think his expertise is just going to be essential to us accelerating the development of these platforms worldwide and the efficiencies that we can gain in our own development program. So a minute ago, I mentioned that USAID is proud of our work. We are, but actually, if we're going to move from a cash-based world to an electronic world, we have to build a movement. We have to build a movement across the US government, hand in hand with the public sector and the private sector to get out of cash. And that's where you come involved. If you work for a company that does business overseas, if you worship at a place that does charitable work overseas, if you know an NGO that works globally, ask them to start using electronic payments. Join us. Build this mobile money and this electronic payments platform, and let us realize at Project 20 the kinds of opportunities that I've described today. So join me in thanking Carl, and come help us revolutionize the world. So I'd now like to introduce my good friend and a most amazing Chief Technology Officer for the country, Todd Park.
Thank you. Hello. I just got the news flash that the hashtag InnovateGov is trending across the United States of America. So join the conversation, join the fun on Twitter. So it's my great pleasure to talk with you about the 5th and final Presidential Innovation Fellows Project, the Open Data Initiatives Program. And I'd like to start by talking about the weather, or more specifically, weather data. So decades ago, the government made a key decision, which was to actually make all the weather data it was collecting downloadable electronically by anybody for free. What then happened is that free fuel powered an enormous rising tide of innovation in the private sector. Entrepreneurs who picked up that data and turned it into the Weather Channel, weather.com, iPhone weather apps, weather insurance, and much more. Growing the economy, creating jobs, and adding a lot of value to all of our lives. Government ran a similar play in the 80s when President Reagan began the process of liberating access, civilian commercial access, to the Global Positioning System, GPS, which of course now has spawned everything from navigation systems to precision crop farming to Foursquare on your iPhone and everything in between. In fact, actually last year alone, it's estimated that civilian and commercial access to GPS created $90 billion of value for the American economy. Growing jobs, growing the economy, and improving all of our lives in immeasurable ways. And so we love this play. We love this play of basically without legislation, without regulation, without actually really spending a ton of money, right, taking data that's sitting in the vaults of the government that taxpayers already paid for and jujitsuing it into the public domain as machine-readable fuel that American entrepreneurs can take and turn into magic, turn into all kinds of new products, services that help improve American lives, create jobs, and grow the economy. So that's what the Open Data Initiatives program is all about, is expanding and accelerating the work to liberate data as fuel for American entrepreneurship and innovation. We're focused on these 7 sectors. Health is actually an area where through the Health Data Initiative, we've been liberating health-related data, information resources for a few years now, with hundreds of companies, large and small, taking that data and turning it into all kinds of products that help you pick the right hospital or doctor for your family, connect to a clinical trial that could save your life, help doctors deliver better care, help you manage your asthma using the latest medical knowledge, and much more. We just kicked off in May a safety data initiative. We kicked off actually a couple months ago an energy data initiative, an education data initiative. I see folks on that team here in the room for the Department of Education. We'll shortly be launching an impact data initiative focused on nonprofit sector related data, a global development data initiative focused on food security and other key topics, and a finance data initiative as well. And the whole idea is not just to liberate data, okay? Because data by itself is useless, right? I can't feed my babies data. I can't pour data on a wound and heal it, right? I can't actually pour data on a road and fix it. Data is only useful if it's applied. So you do actually have to make new data available. That's actually very helpful. You also need to take existing public data that may be available, but in books, PDFs, static websites that are useless to a developer, and actually make it available in forms that are useful to a developer, right? Bulk downloadable files, liquid machine-readable data, accessible through APIs, basically forms that are usable by developers. You do that too, but if you just do that, you've accomplished actually some of what you need, but not all. And the last thing you need to do is you need to actually engage the people that you hope will use the data, will apply the data to create tangible benefit for the American people. Engage with the entrepreneurs and innovators, spread the word about the data that's available, get their feedback on what can be improved about, what feedback actually would be useful to make new data resources available, so on and so forth. Celebrate what they're doing, spread the word about what they're doing, and catalyze a chain reaction of innovation that continually expands the array of services, products, features, benefits produced for the American people, produced by entrepreneurs using our data in a way that actually improves lives and creates jobs. And so what does success actually look like at the end of the day? Success looks like Dr. Pete Hudson, emergency room doc and entrepreneur. And Pete Hudson, in fact, happens to be here. What do you know? Please welcome to the stage, Dr. Pete Hudson.
Well, thank you, Todd, and thank you very much for having me here at this very exciting event today. Lots of energy in this room. And Todd asked me to come here to talk to you about the perspective as a entrepreneur from the private sector who's worked with open data from the government before. And it's been a really important part of our company, and so I want to tell you our creation story. So iTriage was created in 2009 by 2 crusty old ER docs who are unlikely entrepreneurs. The good-looking one up here is Wayne Guerra on the left, and the other guy has a little bit more gray hair now. And we started the company after practicing emergency medicine for about 20 years and taking care of about 50,000 patients. And what we noticed during that period of time was that people struggled with the core information surrounding their health care, that they didn't have the right information at the right time to make the right decision and an informed decision about what to do about their health care. And that led to huge problems, increased costs, bad outcomes, and huge inefficiencies in the system. And one day we just decided we'd had enough, we had to do something about it. But we weren't really sure how to do it. Enter the smartphone. Enter the, should be. So enter the smartphone, a device that you can take with you anywhere you need to be. It can access data remotely. It has a beautiful interface. It's easy for people to use, and you can distribute technology wirelessly. We called it iTriage because we wanted people to be able to make decisions based on information and based on the taxonomy of healthcare. So we started to assemble data, and we put together clinical information. We connected that to provider directories, and built a technology that allowed people to start to work through the pathways of clinical information, starting with a symptom, going to conditions, and all the way to the right providers, and then connecting directly with that provider. It was a very fun exercise in building a product, and so we launched it in the marketplace. We didn't know what would happen. You know, one of the reasons I'm here today, I think, is because it became wildly successful. Millions of people have downloaded it. In fact, we're up to about 7 million people right now. Every month, it's used about 3 million times to make healthcare decisions and to get the information, take informed action. It's been adopted by close to 20% of the acute hospital marketplace, and we've added on functionality like appointment setting and ER check-in, urgent care check-in, and things like that to connect directly into the HIT systems in the hospitals and provide that data right back to the consumer. It's been well reviewed by people all around the country. In fact, we've had 60,000 people write in reviews, and it's a 4.5 out of 5 stars on both markets. We were so passionate about this and drove this technology as quickly as we could. In fact, from startup to the first significant mHealth acquisition in the marketplace by Aetna was about 2.5 years. And now we're part of this amazing group at Aetna that is looking at post-reform business models for healthcare and how we fit into that. So let's go back to the creation story, back to 2010. One of our employees, Jonathan White, who was starting to work with different sectors of the government, came into me and said, "Have you heard about this open data initiative thing?" I said, "No, I haven't heard about it, but it sounds interesting." So we got connected with Todd and others here in the government, and we found out that there was great data, provider data that we needed. Federally qualified health centers, Medicare provider data sets, mental health and substance abuse data sets, and they were actually put together and opened up by great people in the government and made available to us. We participated in 2 different events and presented, and I'm happy to announce that there's been 125,000 people that have found federally qualified health centers since we started that, about 25,000 people that found mental health and substance abuse centers through our technology with this data. So actually really connecting people. But I think the 2 things that I'm proudest about with this company are, one, that we went from 2 employees who were unpaid, and I can vouch for that because I was one of them, to now 80 employees, 15 contractors, 30 open requisitions. So for those of you who are motivated, like to build stuff, and really talented, come join the most amazing group of employees at our offices. I know they're watching right now, and they're absolutely fantastic. So that's one of the things I'm proudest of. The second thing that I'm proudest of is the number of stories we've gotten of people who have been empowered by this technology and have made better decisions. From a man who had jaw pain, didn't know what it could be, used our technology and connected to, oh, it could be a heart attack, I'm going to call 911. And it saved his life. To a story I just got the other day, a visually impaired woman with cerebral palsy who has multiple medical problems and is bedbound, who uses our technology to become more informed about her health conditions and medications, and now can actually have communication with her doctor about the different issues. Those are the things that matter. So that's our story. It's a story of American innovation that's trying to tackle a really big problem. So download iTriage. And it took us 20 years to take care of 50,000 patients and 3 to take care of 7 million. So that's how technology should scale and make things better. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pete. Rock on. And so what's the play? What is the Open Data Initiative's play exactly? It's clone Pete Hudson. That is the play. Clone the story. And very specifically, clone the actual use of the data, the application of data by American entrepreneurs and innovators to create real benefit in people's lives. Right? Help people find the right doctor that could save their life. Help your daughter find the college that will provide the best value for her. Help a new father or mother know what products have been recalled, what cribs have been recalled, so that you could actually keep your baby safe. Get transparency on the nonprofit marketplace so you actually put your charitable contributions, your hard-earned dollars, into the nonprofits that will produce the best value socially for your money. Real tools, real services built by American entrepreneurs using free government data that can help make American lives easier, make them better, and create jobs and grow the economy all at the same time. And we are so incredibly excited by the fellows that have come to town to help our amazing team do that. So I'd like to introduce them, starting with Ian Kalin from San Francisco, California. Ian has a story out of a Hollywood movie. He started his professional career as a counterterrorism officer for the United States Navy post 9/11. He later served as a nuclear engineer aboard a fairly large boat, the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan. After leaving the Navy, he joined a fast-growing energy startup, had a brilliant career there that delivered market intelligence solutions to the electricity and gas sectors. He's incredibly passionate about energy and empowering people through data. And he has chosen to give up a full ride to Harvard University's Kennedy School to serve his country once again as a Presidential Innovation Fellow. Next up, Marina Martin, hailing from Seattle, Washington. Another unbelievable human being. She's been a business efficiency consultant and a web developer, combining two very high-octane skills in one incredible person for the past decade, helping businesses save time and money through optimization and code. She's written extensively about business efficiency. She's worked on open Gov projects across Washington State. She actually did the first startup weekend focused on Gov. In her spare time, I don't know how she finds the time, she works with medically fragile foster children, and she'll be a critical force propelling our education data initiative forward. So thanks so much for coming to serve, Marina. Next up, Nick Bramble. Hailing from New Haven, Connecticut, Nick is a lawyer who is passionate about improving how governments release data and promote engagement by citizens and startups. He directed the Law and Media program at Yale Law School's Information Society Project and has done a ton of research in the realms of data policy, privacy, and intellectual property. Interesting trivia fact, he's also been an extra on several episodes of Dawson's Creek and helped build grammar learning software and work prior to attending the Harvard Law School. He'll be a critical force propelling our finance data initiative forward. Welcome and thank you, Nick. Next up, Raphael Majma, hailing from the borough of Brooklyn, New York. Raphael is a second-generation Mexican-Iranian American who transitioned from a career path in commercial law to pursue the opportunity to use his legal expertise as a passionate advocate for the cause of open data. He most recently worked on the initiative on open government data and the nonprofit sector for Beth Novick at New York Law School, creating strategies for getting data unstuck. He's an eager, selfless young innovator who is dedicated to public service, dedicated to actually making data more accessible. We could be more excited that he's here, and he'll be instrumental in helping to drive our Impact Data Initiative, which is focused on nonprofit sector-related data liberation. Thank you, congratulations to Raphael. Next up, Dmitry Kachayev. Welcome, Dmitry. Back in the summer of 2006, ages ago, way before it was cool, Dmitry worked to design, develop, and launch the first government open data catalog for the District of Columbia. He was also part of the two-person team that came up with, launched, and helped to run the very first open innovation competition around government data, to build apps using government data. He's also collaborated with a number of big American cities to design, implement, and launch the Open 311 API. He hails from Arlington, Virginia. It will be a key force powering our global development data initiative. Welcome and congratulations, Dmitry. And last but definitely not least, Nathaniel Manning from San Francisco, California. Nathaniel is the Director of Business Development and Strategy at a legendary organization in the tech space, Ushahidi, which is a nonprofit tech company that specializes in developing free and open source software for information collection, visualization, and interactive mapping. Actually played a critical role in the response to the Haiti earthquake. He's also a robotics entrepreneur. On top of that, he co-founded and is the Chief Operating Officer of Ninth Sense Robotics. He sits on the World Economic Forum's Personal Data Tiger team, on Google's Data Colloquium team, on the Technical Advisory Board for The Rules, which is an organization dedicated to fighting poverty, and is an alumnus of Singularity University. He will join Dimitri in powering forward the Global Development Data Initiative. Thank you for your service, sir. So please join me in congratulating the amazing Open Data Fellows. And we're excited, not just about the fellows coming to town, we're excited about anyone and everyone in America plugging in who actually wants to help. So we're very interested in talking with entrepreneurs and innovators who want to learn more about our data, give us feedback about, suggest new data to be liberated, and we're interested in folks unleashing their inner Pete and building great things that can help the American people create jobs using open data. Data owners across the government. As per the digital government strategy, right, we are on a real movement here, a bunch of work to make the default state of data in the government open and machine readable. So we're really, really interested in seeing if you have data that you want to liberate, make machine readable, and turn into goodness for America. So if you're a data owner that wants to join the movement, opening up your data, please let us know. And anyone who wants to host meetups with entrepreneurs, innovators, and technologists, who wants to do code-a-thons, we'd love to actually work with you. A lot of this is about actually on-the-ground engagement, actually being out there, meeting up with developers, meeting up with entrepreneurs, getting feedback on our data, helping to see what they actually do, celebrating what they do, catalyze more of it. So if you're interested in being part of that, do let us know. And you can contact us actually at this Twitter hashtag. Also, you can go to whitehouse.gov/innovationfellows and sign up to follow any of the projects. And stay tuned for more opportunities to be helpful. This team needs you, and we'll be looking for your help. So thank you, and congratulations again. Okay.
All right. To close on the day, I want to ask you that you please join me one more time. I know we've been clapping a lot to thank all these great Americans for coming to work with us. You know, Todd and I, the leadership here at the White House, the leadership in agencies that we've talked to, and the president are thrilled that you're all here. And this is an incredible opportunity to do incredible things for the American people. And thankfully, we have, as you learned, incredible people here to help us do it. So.
And again, it's an opportunity for everyone across the country to get engaged. We actually have had about 4,500 people already sign up to follow the projects and contribute to them in some capacity. So here again are the hashtags. And you can actually sign up for email updates from all of them at whitehouse.gov/innovationfellows. Stay tuned for opportunities to plug in specific ways, and we are grateful in advance for all of your help. Actually, and as one additional opportunity to engage, we'll be having Twitter office hours to talk about the Fellows Program and the 5 projects today at 5 p.m. And you can actually tee up your ideas and questions at the Twitter hashtag WHChat. And now to close our event, we'd like to welcome the Fellows all back to the stage with Director John Barry for the ceremonial swearing in. Fellows coming up. Thanks, Jack. Just line up back on stage.
Okay, this is your last chance to back out. I'm going to administer to you your oath of office. It is a solemn oath, and it is one that dates back to the beginning of our country. And everyone who has served our country has taken this oath. Our men and women in uniform take the exact same oath. And so this oath has a certain solemnity to it. And I am going to, you will repeat after me. I'll begin by saying I, and then I will pause and allow you to say your names, if you would say your names. And then you have the option to either swear or to affirm. And you can adjust according to your conscience. And then the rest you just repeat after me. Okay? Everybody ready? If you'd raise your right hands, please. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Welcome aboard.